Hello. Hopefully you can hear me okay. Mai is here with first. Welcome in. Kinda sorta starting on time today, if you don't count the time it took to make more coffee. I used to try to I used to try to make my coffee at 10 so that I could start streaming right at 10:30, but then mornings just don't cooperate with me. Peter, hello. It was funny, both of those spammers popped up like right the second I got back to my computer. Sometimes I don't know how they get some of these names past like Twitch's moderation. Uh, because Twitch won't even let you say certain words in your chat anymore, but they'll let people put it in your name, I guess. Welcome everybody. How's it going? How are you? A bit of a slow morning here. Hopefully we'll see how things go. Twitch is both odd and a hoe. Twitch is very odd sometimes. Very, very odd sometimes. Yeah, so today I'm hoping to get started on a new project, and I don't think we talked about this particular project very much because I meant to start talking about it and start outlining it on stream, but then I hurt myself. Glad I could actually be at my computer to say hi. Have to be heading out to work in an hour, but I get to be here at the beginning. Hell yeah, it's good to talk to you. I do think last week we mostly caught you in between work and other activities, so it's nice to see you. How's it going? How have you been? But yeah, we managed to get in, I think, one day of outlining on Beyond the Mirror before I utterly destroyed myself, and we never got around to talking too much about this project, which is going to be replacing, now that I've finished the Everyone's Child series, now that that's completely wrapped up, edited, ready to go off to the final beta reading, I have a new project that I'm starting, which is actually a spin-off of the Celestial Serenade. So, doing alright, ran headfirst into a wall on Shade Tree Rest. Oh no! So I decided to dig out Girl Who Would Be King since I finished it in 2023, and it's been gathering dust since then. I'm sorry to hear that. I know you had posted some stuff on the Discord. Also, for a moment, I thought you meant a literal wall. It took my brain a minute to be like, no, you've had 2 sips of coffee. You know how to properly interpret these words. I know you posted some stuff on the Discord, and I was hoping you had gotten past things, but let us know if there's anything we can do to help in any way. Sometimes you gotta just kind of push past stuff if nothing else is working. But yeah, so I think I've mentioned a couple times that some of my major series do have like spin-offs sort of in the wings, sort of waiting to happen. And in this case, a spin-off is like it takes place in the same universe. So this basically takes book. Wow, I can tell today is going to be a long day. This book basically takes place between books 6 and 7. This takes book. This book takes place between books 6 and 7 of the Celestial Serenade. So there's a big time jump between books 6 and 7. So there's 2 trilogies, and then a big gap, and then 1 trilogy, and then another trilogy that I am writing now, that I'm editing now, that's going to be in the same timeline as that second, as books 6, 7, or 7, 8, and 9, rather. So between book 6 and 7, there's a big time jump. But right after book 6, before that time jump happens, is where Second Chance Specials takes place. And it's the idea is kind of like I wrote this big epic about these big players, these movers and shakers who were like the big like heroes of the realm and all that sort of thing, and you know the people who kind of made everything happen. They fought a war, they ended a war, they fixed everything. And so the idea with second chance specials is to write about normal people who are living in that world that sort of grew out of that whole epic saga. So the idea is to focus on people who aren't big heroes and who aren't going to change the entire galactic empire, but people who do live there and who do have problems that they're trying to solve on, you know, large and small scales. And also, there is like a major change that happens like at the end of the book 6 of the Celestial Serenade. They've been working towards something that comes to fruition. So it's kind of a chance to look at, like, hey, this is what the world looked like directly after that decision was made, and there were good things about it and there were bad things about it. And again, it's about showing people sort of living in that transition, and showing sort of what the challenges probably were, and you know, things like that. Focusing on things that are a bit more mundane, even though it's still a sci-fi setting, so mundane in air quotes. I mean, the story does still take place in space. Yeah, so the idea is that the Celestial Serenade characters from the first 6 books might appear in the background of second chance specials. They'll certainly have their own things that are going on, and they'll certainly be doing their own things, but they're not the main focus. They're sort of like, it's kind of like when they started making Marvel TV series, and then occasionally they'd have like a cameo from one of the big movie people in the background sort of thing. So it's sort of like that. Those people are around, they're doing their thing, but they're not the main focus of this story. And I did outline this shortly after I hurt myself, and I do have a plan for it. And we're hopefully going to start writing it today. That's why there's nothing on the word count side, is because we actually have not started this yet. I created a document. I've put 7 words in that document, which are basically Backwards Bar and Grill and Chapter 1. Yeah, we're gonna get some cookies in there. Been trying on and off since February, March. Decided to just let it go percolate in the corner and think about what it did. I've been meaning to pull GK back out. Anyway, I need a hyper-focused project to get through for the summer. Well, I hope putting it on the shelf for a little while works. Sorry about the yawn. I hope putting it on the shelf for a little while works. Sometimes the best way to get an answer to a situation is to walk away and come back for a bit. Oh, Megan of the Clacks, I have a question seeking your wisdom. When is too much too much? I'm on what is barely a first draft. It's just this happens, this person is doing this and this, they said that, and this and that. But at points I've gone into ridiculous detail, and other times it's like, this is a thing. How do you know when too much detail is too much? This is a really... how's my spine today? My spine is doing okay. Yesterday I had almost no pain. Today my hip is bugging me a little bit. So I don't necessarily know why, but some days I get little spikes, and other days I don't. So, hopefully it'll settle down. Sometimes I get a little spiky in the morning and then I feel better later in the day. But I'm doing relatively well. Like, my physiotherapist has a, like, little website where I can rate on a scale of 1 to 10, like, what my pain level is. Yesterday I rated a 1, and today I might rate, like, a 2. So it's not bad. Like, I'm doing pretty good. I wish I could have a pain-free day, but we'll get there someday. Someday it'll happen. How do you know when too much is too much? This is a complicated question because there's no universal answer for this. It depends on what's happening in the scene, and it depends on how important that event is to the story. So you can think of, you know, you can kind of think of a novel as like a movie. in a given scene, you might zoom in on certain events and stay with them and follow them from beginning to completion. And then there might be like little montages where you, like at the start of a chapter, you might catch people up on what happened in between times, and it would be like a little montage where you don't really zoom in and you don't really get like in-depth dialogue. You just kind of see someone moving from point A to point B. So a novel isn't always consistent in how it's presenting information, and that's good. Sometimes you want to spend more time on something because it's important, and sometimes you just want people to know that like somebody went to their office. Like if somebody has a regular morning commute and something happens on that commute, you would show the commute because something happened. But if they just have a regular normal commute and nothing happens on it, you would just show them arriving at their office because nothing happened on their commute, so you don't have to zoom in on it. Pausing to sippy sip coffee. So if there's an important event and your characters are interacting within that event, and it's a big part of the plot and it moves the plot along, then you do want to go into a lot of detail. Maybe you don't want to go down to like every sequence on a dress or every ring on a person's finger, but you would go into a lot more detail about an event that's really central to the story. You would describe the setting so that people can imagine it. You would relate all the various dialogue that was happening and all the movement that's happening around it and everything that's happening in between. And you would want to go into a ridiculous level of detail for that scene because it's an important scene. I would say if you find yourself writing about like every mundane thing that is happening, hey Faded Stardust, how's it going? Like if something happens in the afternoon, but you find yourself describing a character's entire morning and what they ate for breakfast and what they ate for lunch, and you have like 2 pages of that before you get to like what's actually important, then you probably want to cut that and just, you know, sort of zoom to the afternoon where the event happens. So this is kind of a judgment call kind of thing where you kind of have to look at what's important to the story and focus on giving detail there, and anything that's not really important or is just transitionary, or isn't really adding anything to the overall movement and flow of the plot, you can probably skip or cut down to be very minimal. I just wrote a dinner scene which is fairly detailed because the main character is expressing her early 2000s teenage feminine rage and how she's getting back at her parents, but I've already come to the conclusion that's the only time we'll really do that because after this one meal, all the things change, so this is really just to focus on how she feels. I mean, if this is... It sounds like this is an important scene, right? If everything changes after that, then, you know, in what way is this sort of like a catalyst for everything changing? And if that's what it is, if this is like an inciting incident or a catalyst for change in this character's life, then it would be a very big deal and you would want to show it in detail. Unfortunately, like if you ask, how do I know which scenes are important to my story? That's just kind of something you have to figure out. I can't necessarily help with that. But anything that moves the story forward, anything that develops your characters, anything that gives information or anything that sort of feeds into the overall narrative can be considered something important. Versus, like, there are lots of things that happen in the day-to-day. It's kind of like I got feedback from a beta reader who I had written a scene from a certain perspective, and she was like, well, it would have been kind of cool if we had seen it from this other person's perspective. And I was like, that scene from this other person's perspective is literally just him drinking tea and falling asleep. because this character is participating in a somewhat mystical ritual but doesn't really believe in the mystical ritual part. So I'm like, if I show this from that character's perspective, it's going to be very boring because he doesn't think anything is happening. He doesn't put any stock or any faith into what is happening, and he's just kind of going along with it as a formality. So his narration would be very drab and very skeptical and frankly boring. So I chose to show that scene from another perspective, from the perspective of a character who does believe that something is potentially happening and who is going to narrate in a way that feels more dynamic and more interesting versus just showing someone fall asleep. And so it can be hard. Like, clearly the beta reader who sent me that message thought that that scene would be more interesting from that other character's perspective, but she was thinking of it as like, you know, oh, something interesting happened to this character when that happened, and it really didn't from his perspective. So you kind of just have to judge against, do I feel like something is happening? Do I feel like this is meaningful? Or do I feel like people are just going to be bored if they read this? Excited to start playing Paralives. I'm hearing a lot about Paralives. Not Fated Stardust, your Fated Stardust. Exiled Fae posted about it on the Discord and said that they were really enjoying it. I guess it's kind of like The Sims. Gonna do boring adult tasks during the sprints. Get those boring adult tasks out of the way so that you can play your game. Catalyst for change is the best way of putting it. I've never thought of wording it like that, but that's what it is. Normally what you would call that in literary terms is the inciting incident. So people talk about the inciting incident a lot, and it kind of took me a long time to realize like what an inciting incident is. An inciting incident is essentially the catalyst for change in your character's life. There's that thing where like people say you should ask why now, right? So why in all the time that this character has lived up to this moment in time have they not done this thing? Why is there suddenly a need for them to make a change or take an action or do this thing that they're doing in the story? The inciting incident is kind of the why now? What is happening in this particular incident or in this character's life that makes them feel like it's time to change or to do something? And so if a scene is a catalyst for a character to take action or make a change, or even to change their own internal perspective of the world in some way, that's an inciting incident, and that's important to your story. It was very enlightening. Well, you're welcome, Peter. I'm glad to help in any way I can. Also, this character doesn't quite know what it is yet. It's building to the change that'll happen, and she knows things are different, but it won't become the world it will yet. Yeah, that's the story. Things don't change overnight. It takes time. It takes a lot of time and effort to make a change. There's also a concurrent running story from a boy's point of view, but he's much less interesting. This whole part of the book belongs to the female character. Yeah, you want to add enough detail from the boy's perspective to carry his narrative. But if he gets less camera time at this part of the book and more camera time later, that's fine too. Craft talk with Megan. You know, what's interesting to me is that the way that we talk about crafting a story is like there are set specific terms that we've all heard because we were all told them in English class. We were all told about, inciting incidents and rising tension. We were all told about the climax of the story and denouement and falling action and all that kind of stuff. Like, you talk about that stuff in middle school, but I think we kind of forget it because it doesn't mean anything to you really when you're learning about it in middle school. And then you come to the point where you are writing a story and you're trying to capture um, the essence of what you're trying to do without getting stuck on the structure. And it's good to understand the structure of a story. It's good to understand the pieces that make up a story and how you fit them together and how you use them. But I feel like as writers, we tend to understand how to do something before we actually understand what it is. You can put together a plot graph for a story and understand that, you know, and understand how things move along that plot graph without being able to point to a specific scene and say, this is my inciting incident, this is my rising tension, this is my climax. You kind of have to relearn all of those lessons and how they apply to your work. So you can probably instinctively point to something and say, this is like the beginning of my story. This is when my character starts to feel a certain way about something. And you might not know the specific craft term for that, but you understand the role that it's playing in your story. So when I talk about this kind of stuff, I try to talk about it in both ways, to talk about it both with the terminology that we're supposed to use, but also the way that I sort of came to that knowledge, because I definitely struggled for a long time with understanding structure, because people would say things and I'd be like, well, I don't really know what that means. I don't really understand how the structure of a story works. I just understand whether or not a story does feel satisfying. And then you kind of, over time, you learn to associate the structural terms with the actual like structure of what you're doing. So yeah, I try to talk about it a bit in those terms because it can make it easier to figure out what you're trying to do. I'm trying hard to actually write an authentic female voice, but having never been female, it's difficult. But I'm listening to a lot of 2000s rage women music like Alanis Morissette and Avril Lavigne and Pink. Just women that were furious and inspired other furious women. Alanis Morissette did have some anger, but man, that song got a lot of attention for her. So this is the first sub draft, so if I put it through betas, I will 100% take that info with a spoon and sip tastily. Yeah, I mean, obviously, look at the part of the process that you're in, obviously. But it sounds to me like you have a handle on the story. You're just looking for someone to tell you with confidence that you do. Get female beta readers, for sure. It's set in the year 2002, 2002. Oh my god, last year of high school. So I'm trying not to be like, she pulled out her phone and put on Paramore with Siri voice activation. Yeah, none of that would have been happening in 2002. One of my favorite things I've done is found a font that's Nokia's cell phone, and I've been writing text in that font, and it's excellent fun. Did they have texting in 2002? I didn't. It's interesting to try to go back mentally for stories set when we were younger. I find now that like technology is so integrated into my life that I sometimes have trouble, like even if I'm writing in a future world. Like I've been going through my latest draft of like the Celestial Serenade and weeding out talking about phones, because I don't think they would have like, they would have personal communication devices, but I don't think they would be like phones. They wouldn't be like smartphones, because this is like tens of thousands of years in the future. So they have like, you know, they have devices, but they aren't like Apple phones, you know? So it can be so hard with like where we are integrated at this current moment in time is so different from like the past or the future, that sometimes it can be like, okay, come untethered from how we manage our life on the day to day and do and think of something different. Barely, but we had it. I didn't have it. I didn't have a phone that could do texting until I started working. I did did a co-op placement when I was in college. And the place that I worked for gave me a BlackBerry. And that was kind of the first time that I, like, reliably had texts. My first phone was a Nokia flip phone, but I didn't have text on it. It just had call on it. And then when I started working my co-op placement, they gave me a BlackBerry. So I had a BlackBerry for a couple years. And then I didn't have a phone that could do texting again until we moved to England. So that was like 2013 was when we bought our first smartphone. And we shared it between us. Ghost Pepper and I both used it. Messages are beamed directly into their brains. In some cases, you're not wrong. You spent like 10p a text and you could hold maybe a dozen before the memory was full. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't have a phone. At that time, I didn't have a phone that could do that kind of stuff. So yeah, we bought our first smartphone in England. It was like a Huawei or whatever, however you say that. We got that in, I think, 2013. And we brought it back with us when we came. And then we finally, like, bought separate smartphones when we moved here. You never did canine texting? I remember learning which letters were on which... No, I never did. I never did that. I've heard about it. I've heard people tell stories about, like, learning how to do it, but I never did that. If somebody handed me a phone with that functionality and asked me to do it, I'd be very confused because I never had to do that. Is that when you'd press the 6 key like 4 times? Yeah, you had to, like, the numbers were, or the letters were divided up on numbers. Never had that. I did it in both English and Chinese. Damn! That's a skill, man. That's a skill. I did not ever have to learn how to do that. I think maybe once or twice I had to use a keyboard like that to do typing, but never, like, it was never my device. I never had a device that did that. I never knew it was called canine texting. I think it has a couple of different names, but yeah. You know, technology finds a way, even when you have to press a number 6 times to get the right letter. It's like those old rotary phones where you had to select the thing and you had to spin the dial, and it was always like, at what point do I stop the spin? At what point have I successfully entered the number? Because your world is so far in the future, is it important? Hey, Key! A 40 stream streak! Holy wow! Thank you so much for hanging out, Key. I hope you're having a good week. It sounds like you've been busy. Because your world is so far in the future, is it important for you to try to keep things kind of recognizable to an audience today? Or do you think, fuck this iPad, they now exist in the palm of your hands? I think it's important for people to understand what I'm saying. Like, I think it's important for people to be able to understand what I'm describing. But I also think it's important to not use terminology from today. They do, a lot of the characters in the Celestial Serenade in the later series have, like, little computers that they wear on their wrists that are, like, full computers that are just wrist size, right? So, and one of the characters is actually mute. She has implants, because bionics are a thing in the far future. She has implants that let her speak, but at one point her vocal implants get damaged and she has to use sign language. And so she has a program in her wrist unit that reads the movements of her wrist and will dictate her sign language when she signs. So it's stuff like that. Stuff that is plausible for us to imagine in today's society, obviously, but isn't quite the same as anything we have now. Play Minecraft on the wrist computer. I mean, you could. I think they're well past Minecraft at that point, but you could. Ironically, for years, K9 was easier for Chinese than QWERTY texting until smartphone keyboards actually got good for the language. Damn. If you had to call 999 on a rotary phone, you'd be dead before you got to the second 9. Is that what it is in England, is 999? Playing Doom on the wrist computer, you could definitely, like, I mean, when I say, like, full computer, I mean, like, full computer on their like, that, on a size that fits on their wrist. Minecraft is eternal. I don't know if I agree with that. Oh, interestingly. Our emergency services are 999, which has always struck me when emergencies happen with rotary phones. Interesting. I knew it was different in England. I did not remember that it was 999. I do know that a lot of smartphones now just basically have a button that you can push from, like, the home, like, from the lock screen that will allow you to call 911. So you don't have to actually log into your phone when you need an emergency number. You can actually just emergency dial from your lock screen. Maybe that's why it's 911 in the States, so you don't die. I don't know. I don't know why. Because there's also 311 in the States, which is, it's not an emergency number. It's like City Works Services or something like that. So you would still, you would still have a faster time dialing that than 911. I would be curious to know why the emergency numbers were chosen. It was interesting because I forget where I learned this. I just have all these, like, stupid, nerdy facts that I keep in my brain. But, I think it might have been one of Hank Green's videos that I was watching, where he talked about how us saying, like, hello when we answer the phone is, like, we invented that word. Like, the word hello was invented for the phone. It was like a, what do people say when you answer the phone kind of situation, and there were actual, like, discussions about what the etiquette should be when you answer a phone. And people settled on hello being, like, the thing that you say when you answer the phone. So I thought that was interesting that, like, it's like, and in Japan they say moshi moshi when you answer the phone. So it's like, did they decide, like, was that a word that they were using in their language that they decided to use for that? Or did they, like, invent this phrase for the phone? It's really interesting when you think about, like, how technology can sometimes change behavior. Some phones even call EMS if the phone detects too strong of an impact. Oh, interesting. Sideways, hello. We have a non-emergency medical number, which is 111. If you call, then if you're like, hey, so my face fell out, should I go to a hospital? Yeah, they would probably tell you to hang up and call 911. Or 999, I guess. In Chinese, you say wei when answering the phone. In Thai, you say hello. Yeah, it sounds like basically it was like a cultural phenomenon for people to start having phones, like, in the home. And so they were like, well, we need a way to, like, to utilize this. Like, what's the etiquette for, like, utilizing this? Oh boy, it's time to start thinking about what I'm gonna do for the opening of this scene. In my house, when I answer the phone, I say you're good to go for Greenwood. What's good? Nice. Actually, last thing before we start to get into focus mode. Also, I almost forgot, but we have a new spirit. So they did a big update to this game yesterday, and they added a lot of lo-fi girl stuff, like lo-fi girl aesthetics, and they added lo-fi girl's cat. So when I'm at my desk, I sometimes feel a presence settle into the warmth of the late day sun, streaming through the window, silently observing the words that slowly take shape in my journal. So let me make sure I'm the right person. And we want to go We want to go to the desk. We want to go afternoon. We want to go writing. Is it gonna make me turn off the rain? When I'm at my desk, I sometimes feel a presence settle into warmth of the late day sun streaming through the window. Maybe it's evening. There we go. There we go! I'm gonna change our spirit companion, I think. I guess we can go back to the pancakes. Joe had asked for the pancakes at the end of last stream, and we didn't hang out with them super long. But last kind of thing. 411 is the phone directory, 511 is traffic info, star 69 is call return. I knew star 69. A lot of time accent earlier will say last name, residence, first name, speaking. Oh, that makes sense. So, an interesting thing about, like, how you answer the phone. I do have a couple of characters in the Aravalia Chronicles who do answer their phone by saying their name and rank. And Domran is one of those people where when he answers the phone, he will say Captain Lorcas. And the reason for it, it seems really weird on the surface, but the reason for it is that he fields a lot of work phone calls. And if he has to answer the question of who is speaking, that's like 30 extra seconds on the phone. If he answers the phone and identifies himself and someone's calling for work, especially with something urgent, they instantly know that they have the right person on the phone. And so, but he ends up answering his personal calls the same way, right? It becomes habit. It's just kind of the thing that he always says when he answers the phone. But for him, it's an efficiency thing. It saves him 30 seconds if he doesn't have to go through the conversation of identifying himself, so he just instantly identifies himself when he answers the phone. A nice little character trait for you to know about one of my characters. And incidentally, little stuff, like little details like that are the things that I find can really kind of make a character pop. Like, you know, why have him answer the phone that way? For him, he's super into the efficiency of not having to do the small talk portion of the phone call. Like, hey, you've got this person on the phone, what do you need? Man, on the desk with just the journal, these pancakes look huge. These pancakes look huge. Oh, incidentally, the background that is on right now is the new Lo-Fi Girl background as well. Rai, thank you so much for 19 months of subscription. How's it going? We're just about to get switched over. I have to decide. I probably will change it later. But I have to decide what I want the opening sentence of this novel to be. And I kind of had an idea, but I don't know if it will work for the actual age that I've set this character at. I could make her slightly younger. But we'll see. We'll see. I have a rough plan. I just have to hope that the words will come to me in the way that I want them to come to me. So I am going to take a quick cheeky break. I'm not going to do my stretches this time. We'll save the stretches for after the first sprint. Yeah, just a reminder that I'm not using the break timer anymore because it gives me a little bit more control over getting the sprints started, and because I have to do such longer AFK breaks. Angel Faye, how are you? And thank you. If you mean the image replacing my camera, that was made by the lovely It's Misfit, wife of Kielbatros in the chat here, drew that for me. I think last Christmas or the Christmas before, it was a Christmas art that she did on stream, and it's beautiful. and it's standing in as a camera for me at the moment. Faded Stardust, thank you so much for the Prime sub. I guess you guys started a hype train. I guess you guys have started a hype train, so we'll we'll do the hype train, and then we'll do our break and get started. Writer's block is gone, so I'm back to my Project Wings. Heck yeah, Angel Faye. How have things been going for you lately? I've been AFK for so long that I am not current on what's going on with anybody. But yeah, for anybody who missed the opening of stream, we're starting a brand new project today, Backwards Bar and Grill. This is going to be replacing Everyone's Child, because we've finished with that now. So we're gonna be working on this, and it's gonna be a heist story, which I'm pretty excited about. It's kind of like a little slice of life in space. Is kind of what I'm going for. Megan is teaching us crimes. I'm not teaching you crimes by writing a heist story. Also, I really don't know how to do crimes. So, if you're looking to me for information about how to start your crimes, I'm afraid that you may be out of luck. Been quiet. Baby girl is 16 months old now with 9 teeth and making a mess sometimes. 16 months old. Holy wow. It doesn't seem like it's been that long. That sounds like something that someone who knows how to do crimes would say. Okay. I mean, I still don't know how to do crimes, so. I watch a lot of crime shows, so I know how they say that people do crimes. I watched an episode. I've been watching this show called High Potential, which I guess is actually a French show, but they reshot it for US audiences with US actors and stuff. So they basically remade the whole show. Crime! Peter, thank you for the special message. And they had one where a person, like, replaced a person's sleeping pills with a certain chemical compound so that it would look like they died of natural causes. And I was like, man, if it really is that easy to murder someone that way, I don't think they'd put it on TV. That seems like a Hollywood simplification. Sometimes they do these episodes, and they have the characters be like, yeah, and they would have gotten away with it if this really super smart person hadn't told the police how to do their jobs. But then I'm like, I feel like in the real world there's got to be a procedure whereby they look at that stuff. Otherwise, people would just be getting away with crimes, like, all the time. Mama Greenwood always taught me that if you're poisoning someone with arsenic, give them something almond-based beforehand. Yes, arsenic is supposed to taste like almonds. It's supposed to taste like nuts. But again, I think a lot of that stuff gets really simplified for TV and Hollywood and whatnot. We got about a minute left on this hype train. Thank you to our resubs today, to Rai and to Faded Stardust, and to anyone out there who has resubbed since I started streaming again, because to be honest, it would have been reasonable for y'all to have just kind of dropped your subs. I was gone for a month. So I appreciate that you're all still here. I'm gonna let the timer run out just in case something happens in the next 40 seconds, and then we'll do our cheeky little break, and we'll get things started. Crimes. A new immaturity might have happened. To you or to me? Alright, guys, I'm gonna pop AFK and get settled in for our first big sprint of the day. I shall be back pretty quickly this time because I'm not gonna do stretches. It's on the Discord? Hang on. What did I say? Supposed to taste like nuts. Oh, okay. It's supposed to taste like nuts. Right, okay, so we cut out the context in that one. Alright, Mai, heading to work. Mai, thank you so much for hanging out. I hope you're able to get past the block that you're having with your story, and good luck. We will be right back to get started on a sprint. So I better think of a first sentence. Welcome back, Key. What I was gonna say before getting 3 calls back to back, goodness gracious, is it's very cool when minor actions or choices are used to inform the reader of who a character is as a person. Yeah, I think the little details of world and character building are what can make the most difference, honestly. Just give me 1 second to read over my notes. I've been reading over my notes like 6 times, but this is the first time I'm writing new people in a new place. Sardonisms, why you die? New people in a new place. New story needs extra note reading, 100%. One of my favorite things about script writing is somewhere at the start of the script, every so often I'll write what seems like a completely meaningless sentence. It comes out of nowhere and I'm like, huh, that makes no sense, but it's funny, so it's fine. Come to find out my brain is much smarter than I am, and suddenly the whole plot of an episode rests on that one silly throwaway line. Yes, brains are really good at setting things up. I've noticed that too. I often foreshadow for things without realizing it, and then I go back to put foreshadowing in, and I'm like, huh, I already foreshadowed for this even before I knew it was gonna happen. I hope you have lots of fun getting to know these new people who are going to be in your life for the foreseeable future. Thank you! I'm excited to meet some of them. Too much work, Sardonisms, I'm so sorry. I hope you get a break soon. I do not have the best brain. I definitely can't stress this enough. My brain sucks. It's good at creative things, it's not good at much else. Alright, I'm just gonna throw the timer on and force myself into the deep end. Best brain. No. Definitely no. Hilden, hello. How's it going? I'm gonna say it's... My brain is good at creating. It's not good at a lot of other things, and I wish it would be better at some of them. So I don't know if it is the best brain for me, but it's the brain I have, and I'm learning to live with that. You say that like you need other things. Not having crippling anxiety would be nice. just, you know. Anyway, let's turn on the timer and get things started. Hey, Mad Lad, how's it going? Hey, Pi, how's it going? I shall hit that save button. Uh-oh, Angel Face. Sounds like you need more water. Going yes, very Pi. Well, I hope it's been a good day for you, Pi. I have hydrated as well, even though you can't see it. Oops. What am I looking for? Here it is. I know this setting decently enough, but I still feel like I'm already info dumping. It starts on page 2. Honestly, I do tend to info dump a lot when I do my initial things, and I'm also I'm also at this moment in time trying to remember what it was like to be 13. Maybe they didn't notice you alerts you that several games you have wishlisted are on sale, so you spend $35 that you weren't going to? I mean, you can unsubscribe to those emails. I could, but what else was I gonna do with that $35? Back with a full bottle and baby down for the night. Heck yeah, Angel Faye. Sounds like it's going well. first sprint brings us to roughly 1,590 words, which is pretty darn decent. Should be roughly halfway if I'm aiming for about 3,000 words. I think I'm managing to tell this story in a fun and interesting way without just completely info dumping all over the place. That was slightly fewer words than I hoped to get out on the first sprint, but also since I'm playing with brand new characters here, I guess it makes sense. I think I can safely say, without spoiling too much, that the opening of this book is kind of like almost like a home movie flashback. So the ideas that I'm going for is kind of like almost like a black and white photo flashback of a small piece of this character's life from when she was about 13 years old. So about just coming of age, sort of living that ideal life with her family. Her family is living their dreams. They've sort of moved to a place where everything is supposed to sort of come together and go well. And then for the second scene, which is kind of the true opening of the book, we see the present day, and we see how that kind of didn't pan out, and how that ideal, like, sort of happy frontier life kind of didn't really come to fruition, and sort of what happened instead. So that's kind of the opening for this story. It's not quite the story of like going west seeking your fortunes, but it's kind of. And the idea is that a bunch of people moved out into new territory at the end of the events of Book 6 of the Celestial Serenade. There was sort of all this promise of living a better life and getting to explore the stars. And for some people, that panned out. For some people, not so much. And our main character obviously is a little bit more down on her luck, because otherwise she wouldn't have a reason to do a heist. There would be no reason for a heist. Let me scroll up. Not saying we need your actual brain for the Megan Cutler Memorial Museum and Barbecue Shrine. I mean, when I'm done with it, I don't care necessarily what happens to it. I decided to stop drinking Diet Cola only once a month. Nice! My husband and I pretty much cut, like, soda of any kind out of our life several years ago now. A little over a decade. We really only use, like, soda in cocktails now. So, like, if a cocktail calls for, like, Sprite or something, we'll use it for that. So we buy, like, little bottles and we use them as, like, mixers, but we don't really drink them just as soda anymore. I feel like once you go water, you're pretty much like, why wasn't I just drinking water all the time anyway? Got a haircut! Pie, that's awesome. I hope you love it. Doing well, how you doing? Doing pretty good, mad lad. Not as pain-free today as I was yesterday, but it's very manageable at the moment. I'm about to go do a round of stretches for my physical therapy here in the break. So we'll see if that helps a bit. My vice is root beer. I only allow myself 2 in a month, so you're doing better than me. Hey, 2 root beers a month, if they're like your favorite thing, is pretty good willpower, I've gotta say. Whole lots of no you can't do that, followed by go away. This is more of a happy moment in a teenager's life, hopefully. I don't have that problem because my backlog gives me anxiety as it is. I know I keep saying I can't buy any more games until I play some of my Steam games, and then I keep buying new games. And bumping them to the front of the queue so the queue never gets shorter. Almost 1,000 words today. I'm at 1,282 words out of my 3K. Hell yeah, Angel Faye! You're over a third of the way there. I'm going to take a quick break here. I'm going to pop AFK. I'm going to be a few minutes because I have to do my stretches. And when I get back, it looks like we have a spirit ready to go. So we will unlock the new Lo-Fi Girl spirit. and we will get started on our second sprint. So don't panic if it takes me a couple extra minutes to get back. It's been taking me about like 5 to 8 minutes. It might take slightly longer now that I have like my actual physical therapy stuff to do. And I'll be back. Sorry about that, guys. I took a little longer than expected because I had a little something else that I had to take care of. The problem is only specific drinks appeal to me, and you know that whole if you're hungry, thirsty enough, you'll eat, drink anything. It doesn't actually work for me. My stomach will be twisting, and I'll just lie down on the bed instead of eating something that doesn't sound good. What about water, Sardonisms? Do you not drink water? Like, just plain water? I didn't actually used to like drinking just plain water, but now I do it a lot, and I'm just kind of used to it. I don't really remember when I made the switch, but I've just learned that I like really, really cold water. Like, if the water is warm or like room temperature, I don't like it. But if the water's really cold, then I do like it. Which is really weird, and Ghost Pepper teases me about it all the time. But it has to be super cold water. If I'm not actually throwing up from hunger, passing out from thirst, it can wait until I get something appealing. Interesting. 2 days ago I wrote 223 words. Today I added 1,146, which is how I'm ending my day. It's almost 10:30. Hell yeah, Angel Faye. Good night. Sleep well. Thank you for dropping by. It was good to see you. I hope I caught you soon enough for you to hear that. Very specifically, filtered ice cold water tastes good. Yes. Yes, that's what I drink. The water around here is not great, so I would guess after moving. Well, I've lived in a bunch of different places, but we don't always drink tap water. We didn't drink tap water in England because it tasted very, like, chalky, like limestoney. There was a lot of limestone, I think, in the water in the area that we were at in England, which I think is actually really common in England. So we used to drink bottled water for a long time, and now we drink filtered water, because bottled water can be bad for the environment. Hi! Don't be sorry that you have to sleep. Get a good night of sleep. We appreciate you. Thank you for dropping by and hanging out. The cold could just be numbing the taste buds. I don't know. I do think that water tastes different depending on how hot it is. I will die on this hill. We had a whole conversation about this in the Discord. But I actually do think that water tastes different. I think that every liquid actually tastes different. Like, I don't like cold coffee because when you cool coffee down, it brings out the bitterness. And so coffee that's cold tastes more bitter, whereas coffee that's hot tastes sweeter to me and brings out more of like the natural flavors. So I don't like iced coffee because it tastes really bitter to me. But tea is the same. Like, I do like iced tea, but only certain types of teas. Usually I want a hot tea because, again, it balances out the bitterness and astringency by letting the floral and fruity notes come through. Them limestone pipes. I think there's just a lot of limestone in the, like, ground in England. I wouldn't drink the tap water in England. Yeah, the part of England that we were in had, like, a certain minerally taste to it. Pepsi was made to be drunk cold. Coca-Cola was made to be drunk close to room temperature. That actually makes a ton of sense. Which I think is why Pepsi is so sweet at room temperature. I feel like Coca-Cola is too strong. Don't tell my mom. She'll disown me. All right, let's look at the new spirit, and then we'll get started on our next sprint. Kitty! Pocky! This is apparently Lo-Fi Girl's cat. Pocky is a warm and comforting spirit most often found reclining near windowsills or curled into a ball on soft surfaces. Its orange fur seems to glow under the sunlight, and it instinctively seeks out the coziest spots where warmth and tranquility meet. Very affectionate and deeply bonded to its human companion, Pocky rarely wanders far from their side. However, it maintains a calm and observant nature, viewing the world with a subtle, almost judgmental gaze. At times, a spark of mischief disrupts its usual composure, a reminder of its slightly chaotic orange cat temperament. Pocky is particularly sensitive to rhythms and soundscapes. The soft sound of typing on a keyboard, writing, or rain against the window is enough to plunge it into a state of serenity, often leading it to fall asleep, and it seems even more at peace when its human is nearby and focused. It is said that Pocky only feels fully at ease in lived-in spaces filled with gentle sounds, warm light, and familiar routines. In these moments, its presence becomes a discreet and comforting warmth that never truly fades away. Sorry, my sinuses, my sinicles are being a butthole. Spirit companion. So where did they stick him? Is he at the bottom? Okay. Oh, he doesn't have any colors. He's just this cat. He's just an orange cat. Aw, he shows his little teepers. So I wonder if he has different... Ooh, he plays the game. Kind of. He kind of plays the game. Oh, he plays with the yarn too. Look at that. Oh, this boy is too cute. Oh, look at him! This boy is a cutie. This boy is a cutie. Oh, you can play music in the bedroom now, too. I didn't know that. Oh, we gotta get Dameron to play guitar in his room. Oh, he does little stretches too. Oh, look at that. He's a cutie patootie. I think this one is the cutest. I think this one is the cutest. Whoops. I need to hit the right buttons, though. I need to hit the right buttons. Hang on, I don't think that's the one I wanted. That one, there we go. There we go. Yeah! Apparently this is Lo-Fi Girl's cat, so they did a big update yesterday where they brought in a lot of Lo-Fi Girl specific stuff. So if you want to, you can essentially now dress up as Lo-Fi Girl. So they have like the Lo-Fi Girl headphones, and they have the They have like the lo-fi girl hair. I'm not changing because I don't want to screw around with all my stuff again. But they basically added a bunch of like lo-fi girl stuff. And then you can also decorate your room to be like the official lo-fi to be the official lo-fi girl like room and stuff. Yeah, he apparently doesn't have any other skins. I wonder if that's because he's like the official lo-fi girl character, or if they'll like add more skins for him later. I think he's based off of like the animations that they've done. I forget where I heard this or what the details are, but the conclusion was if you ask whether Coke or Pepsi tastes better, it depends on what temperature you're drinking it at. Very interesting. The national drink of Scotland, Iron Brew. I had Iron Brew one time. It was horrific. I never want to taste it again. It's two different drinks when it's cold and when it's room temperature. I think we had it cold. I want to say that it was cold when we tasted it. We did not enjoy it. How does Orange Cat feel about lasagna on Mondays? We'll have to ask him. Just remembered my only character who played guitar. I made her for Tumblr text-based RP. She was a weak point in space-time who accidentally tripped a few decades into the past. I amused, horrified myself by having her be surprised you could buy a whole coffee drink from Starbucks for under $20. I think we're very quickly headed to a world where that's not the case. So... Alright! We got our new boy. We got our Activita. There's a scene in some sitcom where the out-of-touch rich mom says it's one banana. What could it cost? $10 for one banana? Jeez. The banana event horizon is when that stops being funny. I feel like that happened in England once already. I feel like that happened post-Brexit, but Peter would have to confirm. Alright, let's see if I can get this scene finished. To do some quick math to make sure I've got the distance between my sisters right here. Carly, thank you so much for 24 months. I don't know why I can't talk today. Thank you so much for 24 months. How are you doing? I hope you're getting some rest since you're working nights. doing pretty good, Carly. Having a little bit of pain in my hip today, but it's to be expected. Heckin' eepy, but I had to get up to take care of the animals and find something to eat. Well, I hope you have a good meal, Carly. I don't know why I'm speaking like William Shatner, but I hope you have a good meal. And then if you need some more rest, I hope you get some more rest. Have you decided to stay in this position for the summer? I will if they offer it to me, but I might see if they will let me go down to 4 days a week instead of 5. Fair. That's totally fair. Especially if you're working nights, I imagine it's pretty tough to do that 5 days a week. Plus, you gotta have time to get ready for your move. Exactly. Exactly. You gotta be ready for the big job in September. With pizza? What's on the pizza, Rai? The team leader talked to me about it last night, said she would follow up with me tonight and give me more info. Sounds good. Any job is way more than I had expected to get for this summer, so I'll be happy if it's just part-time. Honestly, they're probably used to, like, temporary employment is probably a really common thing at Walmart. A lot of people probably grab a quick stocking job to get them through a summer in between semesters or whatever. Like, they're probably totally used to that. And also, like Ghost said, who cares how they feel about you at a Walmart? You already have a good professional job lined up for September. Ooh, that's even nicer if you get to stock overnight and not have to deal with customers. Just pepperoni. I got it from the expensive place I love, 'cause B-Day. Heck yeah! Rai will be able to answer this better than me, but what it's made from and how many times it's distilled. oh, this is the part where she's like, it'll always be this way, and then you know that it's not always gonna be this way because that's what the story is about, you guys. I was doing the shelf remodel in the alcohol section a couple of days ago, and it got me wondering about the difference. Yeah! Bourbon is one of the more complicated ones, I think. Bourbon is, I believe, made from corn, specifically, because there's a place up here in Canada that bought the corn and grew the corn that you need to use as the base for bourbon, that because they're located outside of the US, they're still not allowed to actually call it bourbon. So they call it BRBN. Our dog will live forever. Nothing bad will happen to her. Yes, bourbon specifically does come from the US. And it's like a specific type of corn that they use to make it too. Because they had to be very specific about that when they bought it for this place here in town that does it. But really, for most alcohols, it comes down to the base that they're using for it, the amount of times that they distill it, which makes it, every time you distill it, it gets more and more pure. And then how it's finished. Like Rai Rai was saying, how the bourbon has to be specifically finished and that they're not allowed to put certain additives to it. Certain alcohols are allowed to have finishing put on them, some aren't. Like whiskey, I think there's a specific way of finishing it, and if you finish it in a different way, then it's technically no longer whiskey. I also like that this character is 13 years old and she's like, I'm a grown-up now. Yeah, that's what they have here, the column stills that go, like, up really high. Charlie, I love you, you dumb bitch. Never change. Always be amazing. Cheers. I'm just finishing up a thought here, and then we will take our break. I'm almost done with this scene. I just have to get the reason why it's called the backwards bar and grill in there, and then I'll be ready to fade forward to the future for the final sprint. So let's do our break. I am going to go do another set of stretches. That implies the existence of a forward bar and grill. There is no forward bar and grill. It has to do with the fact that the restaurant is on a space station, and their location in the station means that they like orbit backwards or something. I'm trying to figure out how to like explain it. It's kind of a dad joke. But anyway, yeah, I'm gonna take a few minutes here. As usual, it'll hopefully not be, I know it was gone for like almost 15 minutes the last time, but hopefully it won't be that long. Hopefully just about like 8 minutes or so, so I can get in another round of stretches, and then, we will do our final sprint. In fact, I will pop up the final sprint indicator, so that we can get that show on the road when I get back. And I will be right back, and I promise I will do a go-through chat, because I know I'm a bit behind. I will catch up on chat as soon as I get back. am back. Oh, I gotta scroll quite up. Joe! Hello, my goodness. I missed Joe coming in. I feel like that happened during the spront. Joe, if you're still here, how's it going? What is up? Bourbon has to be made in the United States. It has to be at least 51% corn and a split mash, i.e. has 1% of something else. Has to come off the still at 160 proof or lower. It has to go into the barrels at 125 proof or lower, and it has to be in new charred oak barrels. It can't contain any additives or coloring. It has to be bottled at 80 proof after aging at least 2 years. If it's straight bourbon whiskey, it has to be aged at least 4 years. Dang. It takes a long time to make alcohol, my friends. They have to use sugar corn because they need the alcohol. Most of the stuff that they make alcohol from is not stuff that, like, you eat. Like, the grapes that they use to make wine are not grapes that you can eat because they taste really gross if you eat them, but if you pick them and distill them into wine, they taste really good. It's a whole thing. Most places distill it twice because it retains some of the grain flavors. A lot of places now actually use column stills that distill it into 2 or 3 times at once through different chambers, and they're all like 40 feet tall. Not we, Ghost Pepper and me, but they have those up. There's a place downtown where they do some of their refining, and they have a still that's like that where it's super tall, and it's up on a platform, so it's even taller. Are you familiar with a Scottish drink called Buckfast? I tried it for the first time this weekend, and it wasn't terrible. It tastes far less like alcohol because I don't enjoy the burning of alcohol. I also don't enjoy the burning of alcohol. Saw some really interesting wine flavors that I would like to try one of these days, like dark cherry and blackberry. Ooh! Seeing as Megan and the Pepper don't like Iron Brew, I shall likely be gifting them the joy of Buckfest, made by monks as a bionic tonic. Yeah, we didn't grow up with Iron Brew, so I feel like maybe that flavored our experience with it. Joe says it's going well. Heck yeah. In Timmy's here, you can get iced hot chocolate. How does that work? Isn't that just chocolate milk? Try Bailey's and one or both of those. That's my favorite non-alcoholic tasting mixed drink. Nice! My Christmas treat to myself. Every year for breakfast, I eat Frosted Flakes with chocolate milk and Bailey's. Dang, that sounds decadent. That does sound decadent. Not kind on Bailey's. I'm also not kind on that coconut alcohol. Malibu? I like a Malibu. But you gotta like coconut to like Malibu. I don't want to be 35. I'll be 35. Rai, want to switch? You can be 41 and I'll be 35. Does that sound like a good switch? Boyfriend just showed me a sort of comedians reading Charles Manson quotes as Macho Man Randy Savage and then as Dave Chappelle smoking a cigarette, and they are amazing. Nice! It just feels like a halfway point. I've missed a lot of milestones. Listen, lots of people live to be well into their 80s. So, you haven't hit the midpoint yet, probably. And also, there's time. If you're working towards the things that you want to do, there's time. I see you, Faded Stardust said the same thing. Don't let societal expectations define what successes you have in your life. Exactly. I've had Pinot grapes a couple of times, and they're just alright. Yeah, I remember we went on a tour of one of, like, the big fancy wine places that's near us, and they were telling us that it takes, like, 6 or 7 years to establish a, like, in order for you to like make wine, you have to first establish the grape plants that you're going to harvest from. And they were like, it takes 6 or 7 years of just throwing away the fruit before it bears enough fruit for them, like before the fruit is like the right flavor for them to make grapes from it. And I was like, well, can't you like sell them to people to eat or something during the years that you're not using them? And he was like, no, because they would not taste, like they're not grown for eating, so they don't taste good. And that just like blew my mind that like if you're starting a winery, the first thing you're gonna do is spend 7 years growing grapes that you can't use. That's mind blowing. I know people who think root beer tastes like toothpaste. I want whatever toothpaste they're using. Interesting. Is that like the people who taste soap when they eat cilantro? Blackberry wine would be amazing. Just turned 40 and mathematically I'm like 4 months away from my death. Peter, you'll be fine. I've been 40 for most of a year now and I've made it. I've survived. It's been a rough year, but for other reasons. I know there's a place in Virginia that makes more money from selling rooted clipping from their 20-year-old vines than they do from their wine. Yeah, because once the plant is like established, it's interesting because they explained it, but it has something to do with how grapes pull minerals out of the earth, and how it's like cumulative over time. The like the history of the plant affects like the plant. So it's really interesting, but a little bit mind-blowing. I'm gonna get the timer started because it is 10 to 2. We're running a little bit late, and I do have an appointment this afternoon, so I have to kind of slide things along, get some food in me and whatnot. So let's do our final sprint. Alright, the first scene is finished at 3,421 words. I'm decently happy with it. I'm probably going to go back and read it someday and think it's a total dumpster fire, but it's the first scene of a new project. Hang on, I gotta minimize things here for a second. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. We'll see how I feel about things in the future. Gonna go get ready for D&D. I also hope the dice gods treat you well. Rai, take care. Thanks for hanging out and for sharing your bourbon knowledge with us. I know a little bit about bourbon, but not a ton, so I learned some stuff as well. Yeah, I started another scene, Peter. I started scene 2. That's why I'm still a clicky clanking. Need to learn how to spell all the names that I invented for this now. I had the lack of clack fear. Listen, there's always gonna be clicky clacks on the clicky clacky days. Oh, the sprint ended and I didn't even notice. Got to the end of that thwart. That is 1,372 words deep on the second scene for a total of 4,798 words here on stream. That's a pretty solid start to a new novel. I will definitely finish this scene later this afternoon. The second to latest Pathfinder session we had, I was so confused. The boss crit failed at save against Daze twice in one fight. This never happens to me. Dang. Just ate the last dark chocolate bites that were in the bag of candy boyfriend bought at Easter. He gave them to me because I will eat them and he won't. Nice. I tend to ration my candy when I have it, so that it lasts longer. But I also have to eat that kind of stuff slowly because lactose intolerant. I hope you savored those last 3 sardonisms. It is many, many words, but now I am hungry. So I do need to go get some foods. The toes don't fear me, they abandoned me. Let's see who's hanging out on Twitch that we can go drop in on. Who's hanging out on Twitch? That's me talking on my stream. Who is around? Who is doing things? Let's go drop in Astantia. In an attempt to spread the love around, let's go drop in on Astantia. I'm either having soup or stuffed mushrooms. I have to see how much soup there is in the fridge. Or possibly, if there's not enough soup, I might have a tuna sandwich. It is just chicken and rice soup that I made a couple days ago. Just leftovers. Because there is Winds of Chaos tonight. Because there is Winds of Chaos tonight, Ghost and I may have to eat separately, so I have a quick and easy meal in there, but I have to see how much soup is actually left. Humans do like both chicken and rice. Gonna go poof, almost done with work, then must run to the post office before they close. Have a good day, Sardonisms. Thank you so much for hanging out. I appreciate you all. Well, I never used to be part of the Winds of Chaos crew, normally, anyway. But yeah, we are hopefully gonna finish up the one-shot tonight. I am gonna end stream pretty quickly here because I'm very hungry. And it took me longer to get through things this morning than I anticipated, and like I said, I have an appointment later, so I gotta be ready for that. If you are coming to the Winds of Chaos, I believe it will be on Ghost Pepper's channel, and I will see you there. Otherwise, I will be back tomorrow, 10:30 a.m. PST, and again on Thursday. Tomorrow we're going to be doing edits for the Celestial Serenade, and Thursday we're going to be writing another section of My Little Damarin. The one-shot, I'm familiar with that feeling. Ghost worked so hard to make it a true one-shot, and we like insisted on doing long-ass roleplay. So it is 100% our fault and not his. Guys, please take care of yourselves. Remember to eat, to sleep, to drink, to get up, stretch, move around. Whatever you're doing, be taking care of yourselves because it's so important. Until I see you guys again, I love you. You're amazing. Thank you for hanging out. And please, please, please take care of yourselves.
Take your time.